Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Steffes. I'm one of the teaching artists here over at the Plains Art Museum, and today I'm going to show you all how to make a chalk pastel Northern Lights landscape. So let's get to it. So getting started to make our project, we're going to need to set out a piece of newspaper so that way we don't get it too messy. Chalk pastels can be a kind of messy medium, so we don't want to make too much of a mess here while we're working. And make sure you roll up your sleeves and you don't wear anything that you want to get dirty. Art can be dirty sometimes, and so it's okay to make a mess. We will each have a piece of black paper that we're getting as part of our materials, and you'll get chalk pastels in a bunch of different colors, like these ones I have here. So, getting started when you're making your landscape, you're going to want to consider a lot of things. Does your landscape have trees in it? Like in the example that I made, I have some trees and I have some snowy hills. Or maybe your example has a lake or a river, or maybe it even has a polar bear. You're going to have to think about these things and consider them while you're drawing. Here are some example pictures of northern lights in real life. Make sure in your drawing that you leave a lot of open space up there for sky, where we're going to be putting our pretty brightly colored northern lights. Here's an example with a lot of trees. Maybe you want a lot, maybe you want a little. Keep in mind that you're only drawing however much you want to draw. Here's another example, and it's just got one distinct long light, and it's reflecting in the water below. Maybe if you have water, your northern lights are going to reflect in it. So keep that in mind while you're drawing. Here's another example where it just has a really little bit of landscape. It's got a mountain, it's got some land, it's got a little bit of water, but it's not reflecting. And there's a lot of sky here dedicated to the northern lights that we're going to add in. Maybe you want to have a lot of sky for that. Maybe you don't. It's entirely up to you. Here's one more example, and it's got a mountain in the front, and it's got the northern lights behind it, so keep that in mind. Maybe there are things in your picture that are covering up part of the northern lights, and you'll want to include those in the foreground, the front of your drawing. So, with that being said, let's start doing a drawing. I'm going to take my white chalk pastel because I want to draw some snowy fields like I had in my example. So, let's draw that. I'm just going to do a nice small line. Your fields can look however they want. I'm going to have a couple little snowy slopes over here because I want to have some dimension and some different areas in there. Here's a secret trick. If you're drawing and you want to fill in a lot with a chalk pastel, but you don't want to, scribble back and forth with the tip, you can use the whole side of it and you can fill up the area very quickly. And this kind of gives like a little snowy look to it, I like to think. Kind of looks like it's a little snowy field. So I'm going to fill in my little snowy foreground area over here. Nice and simple. There's kind of like some more hills, so let's define that a little more, some thicker lines right here. You know what else I want? I kind of want like a little bit of a lake kind of going on right here. So the nice thing about chalk pastels, if you draw something that you don't like, sometimes you can draw over it. But keep in mind that if you draw over it, it's going to create a blended color. So it won't be just that one color. So I'm going to make right here just like a little blue. So that way I can make it kind of like a frozen lake that's just kind of hanging out in our landscape over here. So let's add in this blue for frozen lake. Maybe you have some brown and you want that brown to be like rocks. Maybe there's some rocks hanging around, so let's draw some rocks near the lake, because lakes always have a bit of rocks hanging out there. Let's have some trees. Trees are really simple to do. In wintry areas, there tends to be pine trees a lot, so I'm going to add in some pine trees. I'm going to take this brown, and I'm actually going to start by drawing in the stem, or like the root of the tree, because I'm going to draw the leaves on top of it, but we want that root to be visible. So I'm going to make a nice long brown stick over here for the stem of my tree. And let's say another tree over here, it's kind of hanging out. And let's say a smaller tree right here next to my other one. I'm gonna take my green, and on top of it, you know, when you're drawing trees, you can just do lines. Evergreen trees, they're kind of pointy, you know, they've got their branches, so I like to do just some nice lines to make my tree. Make sure you're pointing them in every direction that your tree branches are going to be going. And it's nice and simple. So let's add some branches over to this tree. I like to make my foreground more simple in my drawing because I'm going to focus a lot more on the sky. So I don't want to have too much there that's really going to be distracting me from my sky. But maybe you want a really complex with a lot of detail foreground. And if you want that, that's totally fine. You can totally do that. I think I want to add a little bit more color to my tree, so I'm going to take another color. I have another green that I'm going to use, and I'm going to just add that to add a little bit of more shades of green. It kind of gives it more dimension, more value, and it makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional than it might without it. So let's add some of that. I'm going to add a little bit more blue here in my water, and I'm going to do it in kind of like this circular sort of way because water, you know, it's kind of circular. It's not really a lot of straight lines. Let's just fill that in. And I think I want to add just a little bit more white to the snowy area that I have here. Your landscape, it doesn't have to be white. I just chose to use white because I like that. That's entirely up to you. I kind of have some patches here with more white than the rest, so I'm going to use my finger, and I'm just going to kind of blend it with my finger in there. So it's kind of more together and more uniform than it was before. So let's just quickly blend that in. Let's blend in our little lake over here. So here's just a quick, simple landscape. If you have a lot of dust on your picture, you can just pick it up and go tap, 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 and that dust will come off. You can see my fingers are getting kind of dirty, but that's okay. We're gonna clean it up at the end. So it's okay. Just make sure you're aware that when you're doing this, that if your finger is dirty and you touch your screen or touch your picture, it might leave a little fingerprint. So if you leave a fingerprint, make sure that you're prepared to cover it up in some way, or sometimes you can wipe it off if it's light enough, but don't count on that all the time. So, time to make our northern lights. I made lots of space in the sky because I want lots of lights in my picture. However, maybe you don't want a lot, you don't have to do a lot. If you want a lot, do a lot. It's all up to you. The nice thing is that everyone can make theirs unique and different. So, the thing that I'm going to think about is what kind of lines do you want in your northern lights? Sometimes they just have big areas with lots of light, but sometimes they're really distinct lines that are kind of swirling around. So I'm going to pick one of my colors. I'm picking this pink color because it's kind of bright, it's kind of fun, and I'm going to draw some pretty thick lines for my northern lights right here. And I'm going to do, I think, kind of a swirl. I think would be nice. So I'm going to do this little swirl right here for my northern lights. And I'm going to make it nice and thick. And you want to make it nice and thick because we're going to blend it later in a way that makes it look more like the lights we saw in the picture. Because when you just have a line in the sky, that doesn't really look like lights, does it? So I'm going to do that. And I want to make my pink line really big and really thick. So I'm just going to do a really thick line. You don't have to do that if you don't want yours super thick, but I want mine. So you can make yours any way that you want because it's your drawing. So I also want to add a couple other colors in here. I'm going to add some yellow, I think would be nice. And I want to add some yellow that's kind of going along with my pink, I think. But you can do any sort of color combination. A cool tip that I'll give you, if you want to do like some darker colors, and I'll show you in a second, I'll show you with this purple over here that I have. If you want to do some darker colors, maybe put it near some light colors, because this purple, you can see, it's not showing up a whole lot. It's kind of dark, but I'm gonna add some light colors near it, and it's gonna make it pop up a lot more than it would have before. Remember, only use as many colors if you want. Maybe you only want a few, and that's okay. So I'm bringing back my yellow, and I'm putting it near my purple. And now you can see the purple a lot better than you could before, when it was just plain purple. Let's throw in some blues. I think I don't want the blue to be part of this main line. I think that I want some more blues that are in the background. So I'm going to do a nice bright thick blue line over here. That's kind of like big and soft in the background. I'm going to use the side of it to try and get a little bit more, so that way I can cover some more area, but you can do it however you want. But make sure you get lots of pigment or dust. Pigment is referring to the color on the paper there. So I'm going to put one there, and let's put another one over here. So you can make yours lots of little lines. I'm going to do my big lines and little lines. And it can go off the page too. Maybe our picture that we're looking at is only a window into what the world actually looks like there. So maybe you have different colors. I'm going to add some other blue in here. I like to give it multiple colors so it has multiple ways that it looks. So I'm almost done with my colors, I think. I think I'm only going to add a few more. And I'm just going to finish up with some more blue. And finally, I'm going to add in some green, because there's a lot of really pretty greens that I saw in the examples that I showed you earlier. So let's add in some green to really just make this more fun and more mysterious. So I'm going to add in some greens, and finally let's just touch up the pink a little bit more, add a bit more pink. So we got our lines for our lights, and here's what you're going to do to make it look more like lights and not lines. Is you're going to take your finger and you're going to swipe up on the paper, so it kind of becomes these vertical lines that are traveling with the rest of it, and it becomes really soft and really a lot more almost blurry, you could say. So I'm going to do that. Make sure you're always doing upwards, because if you're not, you might get some that are kind of below where you want it, and you got to be kind of careful where that goes. So yeah, if you use a lot, you're definitely gonna, this is why we want to get a lot of dust, is so we can have a lot of dust to kind of bring it forward like that. So let's get my blue lights in there. Bring more of that forward. And the blue lights, because it's so big, I'm just going to add a little bit underneath, rub a little bit underneath, but not too much, because we don't want to take away these nice upward lines that we're trying to make. So let's try to fix these a little bit. And there we go. I think I want a bit more green in this drawing. So I'm going to add some more green over here, just to go with my pink a little more, because I want some more color right there. So if you see after you've done this and you're like, there's some spots where I want some more color, you can totally pick up your pastel and just do that again, adding more color, more details, however you want. So I really like this. I really like having the distinct lines that are doing all kinds of fun things. Maybe you want yours different, maybe you don't. It's entirely up to you. I'm also going to take my white pastel, and you know what I'm going to do as like a fun little finishing touches? I'm going to give it some stars in the sky, or maybe it's snow. Maybe it's snowing this night. It's all up to you. And just tap, tap, tap all along the picture. Some of it can go on top of your northern lights if you want. Some of it might be below. It's your picture, so you do it the way that you want it to go. But tap, 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 tap. And there you go. Northern Lights drawing. Thanks for joining me today for this video. I hope that you have just as fun making your drawing as I did making mine. Just so you know, with these drawings, they're still going to be very smudgy if you ever touch them again after you finish your video, or after you finish your picture. So make sure you're very careful when you're touching it, because you can still get it all on your fingers or smudge your drawings. This is optional, if you have some hairspray at home, you can spray the top of your picture from a distance and it will seal it so it's not going to be so chalky anymore. So otherwise, if you're all done, just take it, tap it to get any dust off, and there's your project. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you all for watching this, and have a good night.